It was a Friday morning in October. The kind of morning that feels completely ordinary. Cold air. A child waking up on her own, eating breakfast, putting on her coat, and walking out the front door. Her mom watched her go. Closed the door behind her. And that was the last time she ever saw her daughter alive. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, it was already too late. She had been gone for hours. She was 10 years old. Her name was Jessica Ridgeway. And this one is different. Because the person who took her wasn't some shadowy stranger passing through town. He was a 17-year-old boy who lived just miles away. A boy who had been planning something like this for a long time. A boy who, when police asked him if he was hunting that morning, paused and said, "Yeah, that's the only word I can think of." Stay with me. Because this story needs to be told in full. To understand this story, you first need to picture Westminster, Colorado. It sits right between Denver and Boulder, one of those comfortable, quiet suburban cities where people move to raise their families. Tree-lined streets. Good schools. Neighbors who wave at each other. The kind of place where nothing like this is supposed to happen. The crown jewel of the city is Stanley Lake, stunning sunsets, mountain views, peaceful walking trails. Big Dry Creek runs through the city with long biking paths stretching for miles. It's genuinely beautiful out there. And it was here, in this calm, ordinary neighborhood, that Jessica Ridgeway lived with her mom Sarah, her grandmother, and her aunt. Jessica was born to Sarah and Jeremiah Ridgeway. By the time this story takes place, her parents had been separated for years. Her dad Jeremiah was living in Missouri. And while there had been some tension over child support and custody arrangements, by all accounts, Jessica had a loving relationship with both of her parents. She was 10 years old, a fifth grader at Witt Elementary School. And by every description from everyone who knew her, she was the kind of kid who made you smile just by walking into the room. Teachers called her joyful, always smiling, the first to raise her hand, the first to start a conversation with a new student just to make them feel welcome. She was kind, genuinely sweet, and incredibly determined. Once she decided to do something, she did not quit. She loved animals. She was obsessed with shows like Victorious and Wizards of Waverly Place. She made up her own little dance routines and songs constantly. She was almost always in a good mood. And she had one big dream. She wanted to be a cheerleader when she grew up. Not just any cheerleader. She told her mom she was going to be the kind of cheerleader who was kind to everyone. No matter what. That was Jessica. October 5th, 2012. A Friday. Jessica woke up at exactly 7:45 in the morning, on her own. She had recently asked her mom to buy her an alarm clock because she wanted to start waking herself up. She wanted to be more independent. She watched a little TV, ate a granola bar, got dressed. Then she and her mom sat together and peeled an orange, which Jessica was going to take with her to school. She wrapped herself up in her black puffy winter coat, said goodbye, and walked out the front door. The plan was simple. Walk to Chelsea Park, just 5 minutes from her house, meet up with her friends at their usual spot, and walk to school together as a group. She never showed up. Her friends waited. Then, not wanting to be late, they kept going without her. They weren't worried, not yet. Kids do unpredictable things. Maybe she went a different way. Maybe she left earlier. Maybe her mom drove her. But at school, there was no Jessica. No absent note. No phone call from Sarah. Nothing. By 10 o'clock in the morning, with still no sign of her, teachers tried calling home. Here's where timing becomes critical. Sarah worked the night shift, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. After walking Jessica to the door that morning, she came home and went straight to bed. She didn't hear the school's call. The school left a voicemail. Sarah didn't hear it until 4:30 in the afternoon. That's 6.5 hours after Jessica was last seen. When Sarah finally listened to that message, her first thought was, there has to be a mistake. This didn't make sense. Jessica never missed school. She loved school. She was never late. Not once. Sarah drove past the park, stopped by the school, knocked on doors at Jessica's friends' houses, asked every neighbor she could find. Nobody had seen her. Nobody knew anything. And that's when Sarah picked up the phone and dialed Westminster Police. "My daughter's missing. I guess she never made it to school this morning." "How old is your daughter?" "She's 10. What's her name?" "Jessica Ridgeway." That call. That moment. That's when reality comes crashing down on a parent like a wall of ice. Because you suddenly understand, your child didn't just wander off. Your child was taken. By 9:15 that same evening, investigators had enough information to classify this as a likely kidnapping. Shortly after, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation issued an Amber Alert for Jessica Ridgeway. What followed was one of the largest search operations Colorado had seen in years. Over 50 police officers flooded the streets that first night, alongside FBI agents and multiple agencies. Firefighters dragged out thermal imaging equipment to cut through the darkness. Powerful floodlights were set up around Chelsea Park, lighting it up like it was midday. Police wanted to deploy helicopters with night vision, but it was simply too cold. Ice was forming on the rotor blades. Flying wasn't safe. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, volunteers were sent home and told to come back at sunrise. The next day, the search expanded massively. Police set up a formal command center. Volunteer rescue teams arrived. Hundreds of ordinary citizens showed up wanting to help. Officers searched backyards, open fields, creeks, wooded areas, crawl spaces, everything they could find. They gathered 700 DNA samples from people in the area. Every vehicle entering or leaving the neighborhood was photographed. Officers were stationed at crosswalks around the clock. Throughout the neighborhood, mailboxes and trees were tied with purple ribbons, Jessica's favorite color. Back at school, investigators checked her desk. Inside they found her notebook, with her completed homework still tucked inside. On one of the pages, she had written a reminder to herself, "Don't play in the park alone. Be careful of strangers." She knew the rules. She was cautious. She was aware of her surroundings. Which is exactly why investigators couldn't shake a certain conclusion. Either she was lured away by someone she knew and trusted, or she was grabbed so suddenly, so violently, that she had no chance to react at all. The FBI stepped in. Then 12 more agencies followed. In total, more than 1,000 people worked this case, processing over 4,000 tips. 4 days into the search, Jessica's family left their house for the first time to speak to the press. Until that moment, they simply couldn't bring themselves to step outside. Her mother Sarah described Jessica as her rock. Her father Jeremiah, calling in from Missouri, said, "I try to stay positive. But yeah, it's hard. I just want to find my daughter." He said he watched her walk out the door. He shut the door behind her. And he wanted more than anything in this world to see her walk back through it. Then, a discovery. A man living about 6.5 miles away in the Superior area came across a backpack. He didn't realize what it was at first. But attached to it was a keychain with a name on it. Jessica. Inside, her glasses, a water bottle, and a piece of clothing that smelled like urine. He didn't connect it to the missing girl search happening miles away. So he posted it on a local online community, saying basically, "If this is yours, come pick it up." Someone made the connection and called 911. When Sarah heard, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. I figured, if something really bad happened to her, they wouldn't have just left the backpack sitting there. But that hope lasted less than 24 hours. Because the very next day, another discovery was made. And this one destroyed everything. Late Wednesday night, maintenance workers were doing their rounds near a park in the Denver suburb of Arvada, about 6 miles from Jessica's home. They found a heavy bag on the side of the road. They didn't open it. Something told them not to. They immediately called a police officer with a K-9 unit. Inside the bag was a small torso. Forensic testing confirmed it belonged to Jessica Ridgeway. Westminster Police Chief Lee Burke stepped in front of cameras and said words no one in that community ever wanted to hear. "Our focus has shifted from searching for Jessica to seeking justice for Jessica. We understand that there is a predator at large in our community." The community was shattered. A candlelight vigil was held. More than 3,000 people gathered for a memorial service in Arvada. Her favorite songs played. A video of her life was shown on a screen. The entire crowd was a sea of purple, because that's what she loved. Police officers, volunteers, strangers who had never met her, they all showed up. They all came. One investigator who spoke at the memorial said, "Those of us involved in this case unfortunately never had the privilege of knowing your wonderful daughter. But we feel like we did. We feel like she's part of our family, and we feel like we've lost part of our family." Meanwhile, a suspect profile was released. DNA from Jessica's case was matched to an earlier attack from 4 months before, on Memorial Day. A woman jogging near Kettner Lake had been attacked from behind. A man pressed a cloth soaked in homemade chloroform over her face. She was dragged into nearby bushes, but she fought back, broke free, and escaped. The only description she could give, a white male, roughly 5 feet 6 inches to 5 feet 8 inches, average build. The attack happened just steps from where Jessica was believed to have been taken. The DNA matched. Same attacker. Same area. Same method. A predator, and investigators knew he was still out there. Then came the cross. Police released photos of a wooden cross found near Jessica's remains. It was a distinctive piece, unusual enough that one neighbor recognized it immediately. She lived near a family called the Siggs, and she knew that the 17-year-old son, Austin Sigg, owned a cross that looked almost identical to the one in the photos. She also knew something else about Austin. He had an obsession with death, with the decomposition of human and animal bodies. She contacted the FBI. Austin was brought in for questioning. He agreed to give a DNA sample. He told agents that on the day Jessica disappeared, he was home and asleep. He appeared cooperative. His answers seemed to satisfy investigators at the time. His sample was collected, and he was sent on his way. DNA swabs were being collected from hundreds of people. Each person's envelope was sent back to them. If it came back empty, it meant their DNA didn't match. Austin's envelope came back empty. He was removed from the radar. But then, on October 22nd, the media heavily covered the DNA link between Jessica's murder and the earlier jogger attack. That same day, Austin told his classmates he felt seriously ill. Weak. Like something was very wrong with him. That night, he slept in his mother's bed. The next morning, he told his mom he had something to confess. She looked at him, and before he could say a word, she asked, "Is this about Jessica?" "I just knew," she later said. "I don't know how, but I just knew." When he confirmed it, Mindy Sigg collapsed onto the floor. "This can't be happening. This can't be happening. I'm going to prison," Austin said. "I know," she replied. "You need to call the police." "Can you do it for me?" Mindy Sigg picked up the phone and dialed the call. Lasted almost 18 minutes. The version released to the public was edited down. On the call, Mindy told the dispatcher her son wanted to turn himself in for the murder of Jessica Ridgeway. She said he had given her details. She said Jessica's remains were inside their house. The dispatcher stayed on the line and eventually asked to speak to Austin directly. Austin got on the phone. Calm. Flat. Almost clinical. "I murdered Jessica Ridgeway. I have proof that I did it. There is no other question. Just send a squad car down here and I will answer everything you want to ask." The dispatcher asked if he had committed crimes like this before. Without hesitation, Austin said yes. The Kettner Lake incident, where the woman got attacked. "That was me." Officers arrived within minutes. Austin Sigg, 17 years old, was taken into custody. 19 days after Jessica left for school, it was over. At the police station, Austin confessed in full detail. He admitted that after the jogger attack on Memorial Day, after that woman broke free and escaped, he didn't stop. He didn't feel fear or guilt. He felt frustrated. He decided he needed a smaller victim. Someone he could overpower more easily. On the morning of October 5th, he drove to the area near Chelsea Park. He described what he was doing that morning with one word, the only word, he said, that he could think of. Hunting. He spotted Jessica. She was playing in the park, packing snowballs together, just being a 10-year-old kid on a cold morning. He parked his Jeep in a spot where no one would notice it. He kept his eyes on her. He waited until she crossed the street. He lowered himself down in the back seat so she wouldn't see him. And as Jessica walked past, he jumped out. Grabbed her. pulled her inside the jeep. She screamed. There was no one around to hear her. He restrained her arms and legs with plastic zip ties. He drove her to his house. Inside, he claimed he cut the zip ties, turned on cartoons, and told her over and over, "Everything is going to be okay. You're going home to your mom soon." She kept asking questions. She asked who he was. She asked if he knew her mom. He answered her. He lied to her face. He made her change clothes. She had wet herself from fear. He gave her his white t-shirt and black shorts. He cut her hair. Then he told her to turn her back to him. And he strangled her. Jessica Ridgeway was already dead before Westminster police had even begun their first organized search. What Austin did after is something I will describe factually and briefly, because this family deserves to have the full truth of what happened to their daughter acknowledged, not buried. Austin dismembered Jessica in the bathtub. He placed her torso in bags and stored them in a pool house behind the home before eventually driving out to Arvada and disposing of them. The remaining parts of her body were found in a crawl space beneath the house, exactly where Austin told investigators to look. He had also attempted to dispose of body tissue through the home's plumbing. Forensic testing later confirmed this when investigators found human tissue inside the sewer pipes. When police asked Austin what he would have done if the jogger attack on Memorial Day had been successful, if the woman hadn't escaped, he didn't hesitate. "I probably would have done the same thing to her that I did to Jessica." He was 17 years old. Austin Sigg was charged as an adult on 17 separate counts. 4 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, sexual assault of a child, robbery, sexual exploitation of a child, after investigators found child sexual abuse material on his devices. And for the jogger attack, attempted first-degree murder, attempted kidnapping, and attempted sexual assault. He initially pleaded not guilty to everything. Even after confessing in detail. Even after Jessica's remains were found inside his own home. His defense attorneys argued his actions were impulsive. They pointed to a difficult childhood, his parents' divorce, alleged birth complications, a father with a long criminal history including domestic violence and drug charges. They argued that at 17, he shouldn't be presumed beyond all hope of rehabilitation. But prosecutors pushed back hard. This was not impulsive. This was planned. He had researched how to make homemade chloroform. He had searched top 10 places where people are most often abducted. He had spent years consuming violent, disturbing content online. Content that, by his own admission, had started when he was just 12 years old and had slowly taken over his entire psychology. A psychologist who reviewed the case files found no evidence of childhood abuse. His home life, despite the divorce, had been stable. And she said he showed absolutely no compassion for Jessica Ridgeway. Not one trace. The prosecutor said it plainly. "What we know is that this young man is dangerous. The only way to protect this community from him is to keep him confined forever. They have never seen an offense like this committed by someone under 18. Not in this county. Not in this state. Not in this country." Almost exactly 1 year after Jessica walked out her front door for the last time, just 2 days before the trial was set to begin, Austin Sigg changed his plea. He pleaded guilty to 15 charges, including first-degree murder. At sentencing, he showed no emotion. He didn't address the court. He sat expressionless as the judge read the sentence aloud. 40 years for the murder charge, plus 86 consecutive years for every other crime. The additional years wiped out any possibility of parole, guaranteeing Austin Sigg will spend the rest of his life in prison. The judge made her position clear. This case practically screams for a life sentence. Sarah Ridgeway stood before the court. And she said something that left the entire room silent. "I'm not going to say anything today, because I don't think he has the right to hear how he affected me, my family, or who Jessica was. Once we walk out of this courtroom, we will not remember his name. We will only remember Jessica." Jessica Ridgeway was 10 years old. She woke up that morning wanting to be independent. She made her own breakfast. She peeled an orange with her mom. She put on her coat. She walked out the door. She was just being a kid. And in a single moment, on an ordinary street, on a cold Friday morning, everything was taken from her. This case stays with you. Not just because of how horrific it is, but because of who she was. A little girl who wrote in her notebook about being careful of strangers. Who wanted to grow up to be the kind of cheerleader who was kind to everyone. She deserved so much more time. If this video meant something to you, please like it, share it, and subscribe. These stories deserve to be told. These names deserve to be remembered. Her name was Jessica Ridgeway. And we remember her.